Can you operate this? Just, right. It's recording already, I think, isn't it? Okay, since we do not have a board or officers of the corporation at this time, were you all aware of that?
Oh, yes.
Okay. What we need to do is appoint a temporary presiding officer and a temporary secretary to take the minutes of the meeting. Okay? Now, I put this under order of business because it's actually prior to the meeting being called to order. And it won't be binding until we actually ratify it under the agenda. So, would someone like to appoint someone as presiding officer, Tammy?
I would like to appoint Mr. Sam Madden as the presiding officer and the secretary, Mr. Mark Bullard. Michael Bullard.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, Mike, if you would step up here.
Question.
Yes.
Okay, these two officers that have just been appointed, their duration is just until the meeting has officially started and the voting is at this time.
Their duration is just until the end of the meeting until the new board is elected. Then the new board takes over. Right. It's just for the purpose to get through this meeting. That's all it's for. As soon as our secretary gets up here, I'll call the meeting to order. Try again. Oh, would you like a chair? No. You good? Okay. Need
Do
some
you need a
paper?
pen? I have your pen. Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't do that.
Okay, so I'm calling the meeting to order at 7:10. Everybody's gotten an agenda. Now, this was an agenda that was put together, I guess you would call it ad hoc, by myself, since Vision Communities couldn't be here, and all they did was provide us with some of the paperwork. So the membership needs to approve this agenda. So, is there a motion to approve this agenda?
So moved.
So moved. Is there a second?
I second it.
Okay. Are there any questions regarding this agenda? No? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll move forward. Now, since the appointment of me and Mr. Bullard were pre-meeting, calling the meeting to order, it needs to be ratified by the membership that it's okay officially within the agenda of the meeting. So, all those in favor of ratifying?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's been ratified. Now, the next thing I want to get to is our corporate structure. Because this is very important to the way, oh, Tammy, I'm sorry.
When can I put a motion on the floor that the meeting go in by Robert's Rule of Order?
You could do that right now if you want.
I'd like to put a motion that the meeting is within the rules of Robert's Order.
I second it.
Are there any questions regarding running a meeting by Robert's Rules of Order?
We don't know what it means.
Okay.
We're not very familiar with it.
Okay. Robert's Rules of Order is run by most nonprofit organizations in order to keep an orderly meeting. I think the summary on the back of this says it best. This is actually Robert's Rules of Order, the most recent edition. Robert's Rules of Order is the recognized guide to smooth, orderly, and fairly conducted meetings. That's about all it says. So I guess I'll go a little bit more into detail. So Robert's Rules of Order goes back to a time, of parliamentary procedure back in England, where they developed a parliamentary procedure for their parliament in order to make sure they ran orderly meetings. So people weren't talking over each other, people weren't yelling over each other. If somebody had the floor to speak, it's their floor to speak until they're done. People have a right to put motions on the floor. They have a right to have them seconded. They have the right to have them discussed. They have the right to have them debated, have them voted on. So it's truly a membership meeting. Everybody has equal rights. And so it protects the rights of all members. That's really it in a nutshell. Is that enough explanation, or should I go a little bit into further?
Yeah, that's good.
Is that good? Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All those in favor of using Robert's Rules of Order to conduct this meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. Now, I went over this at a meeting, I think back on November 15th. Now, I've been living here since 2007, and I don't know how long this has been going on, but I've been parliamentarian for 2 nonprofits. I'm also currently a co-director for a nonprofit based in Washington, D.C. And when I was reading through our bylaws, I realized that our corporate structure is not set up according to our bylaws. So this is the way it's supposed to work. We have our membership body. Okay. The membership, of course, normally annually, except in this case, it's emergency election meeting, appoints 5 board of directors. All right, so they vote and vote 5 board of directors. Yeah, I gotta give them arms, I guess. I was never good at that. So here we got our 5 board of directors. Now, and like I said, you can all look this up. It's in Article 11 of our bylaws, which are posted on our website at broadwayvillage.org. Oh, this isn't erasable. That's not good. Okay. Well, they had them out here, so I don't know. Article 11. Now, according to Article 11, these 5 board members, at their first meeting, they get together and among themselves, they appoint the president and vice president. So let's say they appoint these 2, president and VP, and they drop down and become officers of the HOA. So they are doing dual roles. They're officers of the HOA and they're board members. Now, what's supposed to happen with the secretary and the treasurer is that these 5 board members appoint them from the membership. So they are officers, but they are not serving on the board.
Because they can't be biased.
Exactly. This gives us a check and balance. So what you have here is you have these 4 individuals making the day-to-day operations of, doing the day-to-day operations of the HOA. But these are the ones that have the ultimate power because they're voting, okay? But as you can see, 2 officers can easily be overvoted by 3 other board members who are not involved in the day-to-day operations. So it helps with the checks and balances. It's similar to a public company where they have a board of directors that meets, let's say, once a quarter. The board of directors are not officers or employees of the company. Usually the president and the CEO is. They're on the board, but none of the other board members are. They're usually on boards of other corporations and stuff. So, now additionally, because according to our bylaws also, an assistant can be appointed, assistant treasurer, and an assistant secretary. In addition, and I think this is very important since we have 9 nominees now, and we have a lot of people interested in becoming involved, the board can appoint additional officers to the corporation. So, for example, There's an individual that's nominated on the board right now, super tech savvy, okay? Let's say he doesn't make it. Me personally, if I was on board, I would say, hey, let's make this person Chief Technology Officer. CTO, Chief Technology Officer. Yes?
I'm sorry for interrupting. So when a decision has to be made, will it be made by 9 people or 5 people?
It will be made by 5 people.
That is 5 people.
Right. And then the officers carry out the decisions of the 5. And they run the day-to-day operations. Right. And then, continuing what I said, the board at its discretion, which is stated in our bylaws, they can appoint as many officers as they deem necessary.
So we vote, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting again. We vote for 5 people.
Yeah, but you're just voting for five people right here. Then among these 5, just to we should go over it again, make sure it makes sense. Among these 5, they appoint the president, vice president, who now become officers. So they have a dual role. They're on the board and they're officers. These other people that get appointed treasurer, secretary, maybe if there's a chief technology officer, or the board deems fit to make another officer, they can make as many officer positions as they want. They serve as officers, but they're not in the overall, this overview of decision-making. They're just involved in the day-to-day operations of the HOA. Yes, ma'am?
So are you saying that in prior periods of time, those 5 people have all just only been on over the HOA and no other appointees have come in to make decisions?
That's correct. In the way it's
And
worked.
that's in prior periods?
Right, prior periods. Yeah, prior periods. And in prior periods, they would appoint among themselves the president, the vice president, treasurer, secretary, and a member at large. And when you look at Article 11, there is no member at large. I don't know when that came up, who made it up. It existed when I moved in 2007. It doesn't exist in our bylaws.
However,
Yes, Tammy?
in my opinion, member at arms is the person that in the event I were to get in an argument with her, they are the ones that would step in and say, you need to stop. So in an association like this, I do feel that a sergeant of arms, or whatever the case may be, who is not biased amongst the people, so that if you're having a meeting, they can stop what's going on out here. I think that's where that came into play, is that troubles in the past or whatever, we're not talking about the past, I'm just saying, in every organization that I've ever dealt with, there's always been a sergeant of arms, and that's what they did, was they handled, if there were disputes amongst the members, not necessarily the board, but the members against the board or the members against the members. That's where the sergeant of arms
So
comes.
they're not a part of Robert's Rules of Order?
Yes, sir.
Sergeant at all?
Yeah, do you want to speak to that?
I just
George?
did.
Yes, we did, didn't we?
Okay. Yes, sir.
In that, the management company that the board members hired, the second tier,
Mhm.
so that's really the board hires the management company.
Right.
They become the president, treasurer, and then the board oversees them. And what you're saying is you can actually elect people within the community
To run the day-to-day
to
operations.
run the day-to-day operation, but that's where a board usually hires a management company that knows the rules and regs and things like that.
Right, and what's happened in the past, since I've been here, we've actually been self-managed. What the management company was doing is, all they were doing was handling our dues. We'd send them our dues, they would create people's financial accounts and spit out the financial statements for us. That's all they were doing. Our board was actually handling the day-to-day operations until this past September. The board that was in place at the time signed a full management agreement with Vision Communities, at which time, at that point, yes, then they took over full operations of the day-to-day operations. But prior to that, they didn't have the authority to do that. So these are just, I want to put it out there because, for obvious reasons, reasons I've stated. Yes,
Were the all board members invited to this meeting?
everybody was invited.
None of them showed up though? when they-
Yes, we have Bruce Bostwick here and David Wallace. Yeah. Tara Frederick was actually out of town, but she sent in her proxy to Vision Communities. Yes. Yeah, everybody was sent the same letter. It came from Vision Communities, didn't come from me. Even if it did come from me, of course, everybody would have got the same letter.
Who do we pay our dues to next month?
In January? Well, that's been, that's really gonna be for the new board to determine, and hopefully we'll have enough time for the new board to answer some of their questions. Because I don't have the authority, I'm not on the board at this point, unless I get voted in. So we need to get through the election first, and then the board hopefully will have time. And I put it down on the agenda, time permitted, there'll be a Q&A with the board, and then they can answer those questions. So, moving on. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to appoint tellers. The tellers are the people to count the ballots. Okay? Normally, under Robert's Rules of Order, the presiding officer would appoint 2 tellers. But given that I'm a candidate, I feel that's a conflict of interest. So I'd like the membership, either if somebody would volunteer to count the ballots. Got 2 right here, Tammy and Barbara Sutherland. Are there any other people that would like to nominate? Carolyn Mosby? Okay. Anyone else? Okay, 3 tellers are fine, it'll go quicker, go much quicker. So all those in favor of having Tammy Rittenauer, Barbara Sutherland, and Carolyn Mosby be tellers, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Okay, motion passes. The next step would be to call nominations from the floor. Are there any nominations from the floor? Okay, no nominations from the floor. I was notified by Jason Kluth that he is withdrawing his nomination. So if you would cross out his name on your ballot sheet. Jason Kluth.
That's me, Jason, 4th from the bottom on there.
You see? Okay, Jarnicia Christopher is withdrawing. Huh? Nisi, yeah. Everybody knows her by Nisi, but her name is Jarnicia Christopher.
Was there just 1 or 2?
2.
Jarnicia?
Jason Clutch and Jarnicia Christopher.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
You were doing
Well, yeah, I'm going to go over that. Okay. So, is Andrew Cummings present? Okay, Mr. Cummings, do you accept the nomination?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Madden, yes, I accept the nomination. Kim Theoff, do you accept the nomination? She does. Mark Ryan, do you accept nomination? Here, Marco. Oh, he's way back there. Do you, Mark, accept it? Yes, okay. Cassandra Garabay, do you accept your nomination?
Yes.
Okay. And Michael Buller, do you accept your nomination?
Yes.
Okay. Now,
Jess and Jeff.
Jesse,
oh, I'm sorry, yeah, because I don't have the new ballot, I'm going off of this. Okay.
Jesse O.
Jesse Ayala, is Jesse Ayala here?
Yes.
Do you, I'm sorry, Jesse.
That's okay,
Yeah.
no worries.
Do you accept the nomination?
Yes.
Okay. And Jeff Weaver? You accept it? Okay. So we have,
Jeff Weaver, they want to see who you are.
yeah. So at this point, before the introduction of the candidates, I didn't get a chance to pass this out to everybody. Under the Texas Property Code, Chapter 209, candidates cannot vote. So if any candidate has a ballot present or holding a proxy, they need to turn that in. The law is spelled out here, and the candidate can assign their proxy to someone else, as long as it's not related to the definitions of the degrees of affinity and relation. Let's see, Jesse. Jesse, just leave.
He stepped out for a second.
Yeah, there's a process on that.
Yeah.
So let me go over this really quick. I'll try and summarize it. This is from chapter 209 of the Texas Residential Property Owners Protection Code, which was put into, you have a question?
Are you gonna be like the advocate or actually be on the board?
Well, if people vote me on the board, I'll be on the board. If not, I'll continue to advocate for communities, for the members of the community. I mean, I'll continue to advocate for them even if I'm on the board. So,
But everybody's gonna introduce themselves, so we could, a lot of.
we're gonna get to that. We're doing good on time. I just want to make sure that the candidates understand their, their rights about voting. So, a candidate, a person who's a candidate in a property owners association election, or otherwise subject to association vote, may not tabulate or otherwise be given access to ballots cast in that election or vote. And that's under Texas Property Code, section 209.00594. Now, also, the relations cannot vote within certain degrees of affinity. For example, if two individuals are married to each other, so the spouse cannot, if he's a candidate, cannot give his proxy to his or her spouse. If they're related to that person within the third degree of consanguinity, those people cannot vote either. So, in other words, a child of a candidate cannot vote. A child of a candidate cannot vote. A parent and a child are related in the first degree. A grandparent and grandchild in the second degree. A great-grandparent and great-grandchild in the third degree, and so on. And the reason the state legislature passed this is to ensure integrity of the HOA elections. Because in the past, and I was keeping up on this way back when, HOA boards would rig elections, collect a bunch of proxies, vote in themselves who they wanted, things like that. Now, are any candidates, does anybody else holding proxies along with a ballot? Now, do you have the proxy with the ballot, Linda? Let me see.
What's the ballot sign? Is it your proxy or the stomach?
Okay, that's, no, that's your.
You did?
It's not, I didn't know that you're here, so it's not even.
Okay. You need to sign this. And sign by.
If you weren't here, you'll, yeah, if you're not here, then you write something. Yes, sir.
Right.
Do you need a-
Any, is it, what was that? Okay. Okay.
May I have a regular, a ballot to vote?
Oh, yes, just go back there. So, yeah, you get a regular ballot to vote. Now, what's her name?
Christie Walker.
Oh, you're Christy Walker. Okay. Yeah, I know you. So Christy, all you need to do, did you sign Christy's name on that? Okay, so just take that back there, and they'll exchange it for a ballot.
I think we have a motion next here.
Oh, yes, Cassandra.
Can I give my property to a homeowner who's already voting, or is it a vote for?
Nope. You can give it to owners already voting.
Basically, to clarify,
Yes.
if you're voting or you're wanting to be a member of the board, basically anybody that's involved in your family can't vote. Is that what you're saying?
Well, a cousin can vote.
Okay.
A grandparent, a child, a spouse, mother-in-law, father-in-law cannot.
Because if they're direct family, they can't vote for you.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
I think I decided that I wasn't,
Okay. Then I will get you that. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have enough people here to?
Yes. Yes. Let me double check that. I'm glad you asked that. Yep, I'm glad you brought that. Because I should have mentioned that. So how many bells do I do? No, she doesn't want to one per person. Yeah, but she has to yeah, the only Michael?
Yes.
I am declaring that a quorum is present. We've already handed out over 40 ballots.
Quorum is present.
Yeah, all we need is 20 for a quorum, 110. So, but thank you for that, because that needs to be in the minutes. Yes, Oscar. Or Jessica. It's like Jessica.
Since I don't get to vote, yeah, I can vote for my neighbor.
Yes, in fact, you walked out, I have your sheet.
Oh, okay.
Well, you can just start this part off with some recording, and then just put your name in there, and then throw it in front of this to roll. Yeah, they're gonna do that right now. Three is good, six for the television. Yes. Okay, I know it's all kind of confusing. Does everybody think they have it straight? Okay. So at this point in time, does everybody have a ballot that's supposed to have a ballot? And does everybody have the number of ballots they're supposed to have? Oh, forgot about you? I'm sorry, Dolores. Yeah, yeah. Yes, sir.
You're down the board, I don't think it's the understanding of your names.
No, actually, there is no requirement. The state law in 2012 got rid of that requirement. The only way you cannot be on the board is if you have a felony record Something of that effect. You could be late on your dues, you still get to vote, you can still come up to the board, things like that.
So did we ever finish calling nominations from the floor?
Yes, we did. There were no nominations from the floor.
And we didn't do introduction of candidates. I'm ready for introduction of candidates.
March. These, staple stories, Okay, so at this point, we're going to introduce the nominees, and the nominees would say, something about themselves. That would be great. Let me get a ballot, make sure I don't miss anybody. Okay, Mr. Andrew Cummings, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening, thank y'all here tonight. I am the owner of 4 businesses, all located in Garland. I own Garland Independent Pharmacy, some of you are my customers, and I appreciate that. I also own 22 rent properties, and I'm very aware of what goes on in keeping the community going. One area I own 14 duplexes, so I'm very proud of that. And I'm very proud to have ownership in 3 properties here in this community. I've been on the board before. It's a lot of work. So all candidates, be ready to work. It's a lot of work. If you're working a 40-hour-a-week job, I'm tell you, you can put 20 more hours in. I've been there. I've done it. It's a lot of work. Any questions? You want to wait?
Well, why don't we just take questions as you say? Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yes, ma'am.
What is something that you think you can bring positive to this HOA?
I'm not on anybody's side. I just want what the rules say. That's all I want. I've got an investment in property, investment in community. I want you as my customers down at Garland Pharmacy, which is a mile away. If you don't know this, I'm going to tell you anyway. A pharmacist is your #1 profession out there. More than a policeman, more than a clergy. So.
Do you live on premises?
Do I?
Do you live on premises?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But I drive by here all the time.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
We discussed a problem with one of your properties, and you said you only had one repairman and he was sick. Did he ever get better?
He has gotten better, yes, ma'am, he
So
has.
you only have one repair person
Right.
for all your properties?
Mhm. Sure do, full time. Question?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cummings. Right down the list. Obviously, did you have a question? Oh, you just had your comment. Oh, okay, sorry. I'm Sam Madden. Most of you know me, or at least have heard of me. I've been working very diligently for the past 11 months on what's been going on in our HOA, and also been studying the bylaws and the CCRs and the state statutes that relate to the governance of an HOA. I've been parliamentarian of 2 past nonprofits. I'm currently a co-director on the board of the Center for Pluralism, Washington, D.C. And I have a degree in finance, and other than that, most of you know the work I've been doing. And my vision for the community is like Mr. Cummings. We have bylaws, we have CCRs, and we have state HOA, property code, Texas Business Organization Code for nonprofits to follow by. And it's not anyone's choice to pick or choose what they follow and what they don't. You have to just follow them impartially, without prejudice to the law and without prejudice to the homeowner. And that's always been my view. And I will continue to take that view, and I will continue to serve this community to the best of my ability. Most of you know I've taken care of the pool for this last several years. I've also been on the board from 2008 to 2010 as the treasurer. And with my daughter turning 19, having her own vehicle now, I have the time to really put into this community, and that's why I'm running. Tammy, you have a question?
Yes, what is your conflict resolution process? What would be something that you would implement as a conflict resolution amongst the members and the board?
Amongst the members and the board. Are you talking about during meetings, outside of meetings, both?
If there's a conflict with a member and a board member,
Mm-hmm.
what would be your conflict resolution? Let's, standard Billy Joe Bob decides that he doesn't think that his house siding was fixed the same way that Sally Sue's was.
Right.
Conflict resolution in that situation.
Right.
Is
My-
Billy Joe Bob gonna get the same attention as Sally was? Conflict resolution.
Right. In my view, all the residents will be treated equally. What I would do is, before I would jump to any conclusions, just like I've done in the past year, I've dug into the laws, I've dug into, the rights of the homeowners to make sure that each homeowners had equal rights and equal say. So I would research the issue first, then I would sit down with probably each one individually to see what the conflict is, see how I can resolve it, bring it to the board if the board needs to get involved. In some cases, they may not. In some cases, they may, depending on the situation. But, depend upon, each person's view, because each case is obviously going to be different.
Correct.
Okay? There may be things that one resident doesn't realize is happening in the community that's benefiting themselves, that they don't realize it. Like, we have residents here that don't know that our light in the middle of the park has been out for months. And I've witnessed now drug dealers exchanging drugs at midnight, and I've called the police because our park is totally dark. And some people don't realize that. So there's a lot of things where people will say, well, you did this for this person. Oh, yeah, I'll give you a perfect example. So there's some houses in our association that do not have the siding. I've heard people complain and say, well, why do I have to pay for painting their whole house when all I get is trim because I have siding? Well, what I would point out is, well, why did that person who chose not to get the siding pay for your siding? I mean, and maybe people just don't think that way. So I would try and point out some logical things. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else?
Why are you no longer on the board?
Previous board?